Let me guess. Your home?
It was. And it was beautiful.
4 years ago, I had a simple dream. Much like any guy with too much time on his hands, I was completely in love with the Ultimate Alliance franchise. I even love Ultimate Alliance 2, though I will confess I have played the first Ultimate Alliance much more than the second. Ultimate Alliance 2 wasn't exactly terrible. I believe its adaptation of the Civil War comic run was actually pretty good, and the graphics at the time were actually really good. I enjoyed the realism of the graphics, and how they were able to really make the combat extremely enjoyable for a game at that time. I especially loved the fact that the player actually had a bit of choice in the main story of the game, mostly in the way that the player could actually choose their side in the Civil War, which actually even had an impact in limiting the number of heroes you could play as, at least for the first time you played. Once you played the game a second time, you had access to every character. I feel that the true limit of Ultimate Alliance 2 was simply in the game's end. The way the game ended, spoiler alert for a game that's probably older than I am, essentially the game ended with Colonel Nick Fury being infected with an extreme case of nanomachines. And forcing all the heroes to reunite without ever really acknowledging or embracing any of the massive changes and effects that Civil War had. Like in the comic universe. I guess at the end of the day, Civil War just can't really get a proper ending, because the story is just so complex and so deep, and Marvel can't really embrace consequences for its franchises, which makes sense, but is a bit disappointing. But then, in 2019, Marvel fans were given something they had always wanted, but never expected. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. This game had nothing to do with the previous two games, and it was completely set in a different universe, and you can only play it on the Nintendo Switch, which made PC gamers everywhere a little bit miffed. But to be fair, there's no way to please those PC gamers. They'll never be satisfied until everything has a 8K resolution on their 24K monitors or whatever the hell, I don't know. Listen, my monitor's a fucking television. So I can't really complain. And thankfully, I had a Nintendo Switch, so I was able to be one of the few gamers who actually played Ultimate Alliance 3. The art style was completely different to the previous two games. The combat wasn't as solid. The Nintendo Switch also made the game have some extreme limitations, especially once you have a game mode or anything where the screen fills up with bad guys, then the Switch had some extreme lag. And at the end of the day, the story was just the MCU fighting Thanos over his sparkly paperweights again. But this time, Marvel legally could use Wolverine and Deadpool, which is a pretty decent excuse as to why we had to wait 10 whole years for its release. That's right, I was around 15 or 14 the last time I had played a proper Ultimate Alliance game. And I know there was a online Ultimate Alliance game for PC, but I never really got into it because it just wasn't for me. Hell, even Nick Fury went and got a tan. He wasn't quite as interesting as the previous Ultimate Alliance Nick Fury, especially in Ultimate Alliance 2, when he used superheroes as literal weapons just to take out an entire country because he wanted to. In the end, Ultimate Alliance 3 still had a very decent amount of hype behind it. Fans were just as excited for this as they were for Square Enix's game, which would release the very next year. And boy, was that a night and day experience. But we'll wait to review that later, when the game finally finishes, after it gives us another Thor, and probably another Black Panther. Honestly, I believe Ultimate Alliance 3 was quite fun, if super limited by its Nintendo Switch only release. The story even did try to be different from the MCU in its own way, mostly by using all the characters the MCU legally couldn't even hint at without paying someone a massive amount of royalties that would make my eyes bleed. And the story ended up being as much about Thanos' little kid as about the big ball sack himself. I feel that the game's weirdest limitations were that it showed off dozens and dozens of Marvel characters, but then it had it so that you couldn't play as everyone. Jessica Jones, Ant-Man, Vision, Nick Fury, even that bulldog the Inhumans use. You couldn't play as any of them. Which I thought was really rather strange, because they were clearly in the game, and some of them were even characters that helped you in the mission, but for some reason you just didn't get to play as them. Even the LEGO games weren't this limited, and they let you play as all sorts of characters I couldn't even tell you about, and I actually read the comics. Ultimate Alliance 3 also introduced a relatively new camera angle to try and make it so that way you could actually get closer to the characters, which I thought was alright. Allowed you to zoom in super close on them, but because it was on Switch, and I was playing it on a TV, basically once I zoomed in on anyone, all I got was some really fuzzy pickle.
I turned myself into a pickle, Morty! Boom! Big reveal, I'm a pickle!
Really fuzzy pixels that if I just squinted hard enough, I could tell that it was maybe one of the 3 Spider-Men that I was playing as. The fuzzy pixels, mixed with the fact that the camera got stuck on literally every single piece of the terrain, made it so that way I ended up using the other camera just so I could simply see what the fuck was going on. Though most of the time what was going on was all the heroes and villains using all their weird area of effects attacks that engulfed the entire screen in just laser beams, fires, sparkles, ice, and most likely my character being lost somewhere behind the screen, getting knocked down because the Kingpin is just that fat. Or because the damn Sentinels wouldn't stop laser beaming me. I may have my personal gripes about this game, but I do love it. And I do believe that it is better than nothing in the end. Though I do have to admit, the challenge rifts and the sheer difficulty spike of the game ended up making it so that way I was stuck with higher level characters simply because they wouldn't die within 2 seconds of trying to fight a normal enemy. And it made it so that way I was very limited in the actual use of my heroes. Don't get me wrong, I wanted to play as Daredevil the entire time, but he didn't level up fast enough, so I ended up getting stuck with other characters, like this British chick who would dual-wield guns and complain about fighting T-Rexes. No, not that one. Ella Bloodstone, who honestly I had never heard of beyond this game, and that one comic story where a black kid decided to create a bunch of kaiju to invade the world, simply because he was just that good of an artist. And that's really it, that's all I knew about that character, but I was forced to play with her for pretty much the later half of the game, simply because she wouldn't die. There really isn't a reason why I can't just go back and replay the older levels to rank up the heroes I want to play as. But with 46 characters, each of which needed to be leveled up individually to their max level in order to actually be usable in the game. That max level, of course, being 300. Jesus Christ, Marvel. I have a cat to feed. I can't just sit around all day leveling up 13,800 times in one game just so that way I don't get frustrated trying to go through the levels again for the 700th time. Especially since there seems to be a new Marvel game released every 6 months. Don't get me wrong, I've replayed Ultimate Alliance 1 more than my fair share, and I have replayed that game over and over and over again, but it wasn't because I needed to level up my characters and get them to be super strong so that way I could actually enjoy the game. I just went through and replayed it because I wanted to do different characters, or because I wanted to have just fun. Ultimate Alliance 3 is more challenging and less sandboxy than I would have liked. Though I digress. Through all the difficulty spikes, I actually finished Ultimate Alliance 3, and I unlocked almost every single character you can play as. And I even learned that there are some alternate costumes in Ultimate Alliance 3, though they really can't hold a human torch to all the costumes Ultimate Alliance 1. But once I had finished, I was pretty much set to just leave it alone. I didn't want to get all the characters because they're locked behind super challenging rifts, and I can't be fucking asked to go and try to do 300 hours of challenges just so I can play as Magneto or Loki. I mean, I got Elektra. I didn't really need to do anything else. I had all the characters that I really wanted, but I don't know. Ultimate Alliance 3 was it was a fun experience, but I went through it and I didn't really feel the urge to play it again. That is, of course, until Ultimate Alliance 3 popped up once again and asked me to give it an extra $20 just so I could get 15 more characters. And I said, sign me the fuck up. After all, what's $80 to a multi-billion-dollar company that has more money than I could ever have a fucking wet dream about? So I went right into Nintendo's weird microtransaction procedure in order to buy things on a Switch. And voila! I bought the entire brand new DLC. The characters were released in packs, but thankfully since I had waited long enough, they had all released by the time I got the DLC. First up were the Nightcrawlers, Blade, Mobius, Moon Knight, and the big bad Punisher. I was genuinely excited to play these characters, as a lot of them were my favorites. I had known Moon Knight from the first Ultimate Alliance game, and I was pretty excited to play as him again. And I liked the Punisher, and I really like Blade. And I hadn't really known about Morbius, but I was like, sure, a vampire, what's the worst that could happen? And when I bought the DLC, I genuinely was wondering what possible storyline we could get with these psychotic protectors. And I was pretty excited. I thought it'd be pretty cool to run around hunting down vampires or chasing after mob bosses again. But alas, it turned out all I had bought were some weird challenges, taking out bosses I had fought 1,000 times before in Ultimate Alliance 3's weird rift grind cycle that I honestly hate, and I really can't find to be fun. Honestly, that grind, Ultimate Alliance 3's grind, is one of the main reasons I don't play Ultimate Alliance 3. When you grind in Ultimate Alliance 1, it's mostly just because you're just playing the game and just having fun. But in Ultimate Alliance 3, you're running around fighting these ever-increasing challenges, which I'm sure to some people is nice and refreshing, to have interesting challenges for Ultimate Alliance. But what with the combat being kind of not good, the weird challenges making some modes just downright impossible to play through, and the fact that the difficulty spike was just impossible to get through without really just grinding. And I know what you're saying. Oh, well, it wasn't that hard for me. I just gathered all my friends around and we went through it, and we got through all the rifts within like a single night. But I don't have 4 cats to play with. I just have me. So oftentimes I would just keep getting killed over and over and over again, or fail to fill whatever weird requirements those grinds needed. And I ended up rage quitting. I ended up rage quitting more with Ultimate Alliance 3 than I did with fucking Elden Ring. That's how tough it is. Ultimate Alliance 3 is the Dark Souls of Ultimate Alliance games. There, I said it. But one by one, I was unceremoniously just given these new heroes. And that was it. No story, no character interactions with the rest of the Alliance, no cutscenes, just some extra spare characters to use in the single player, again and again and again. But don't worry, dear viewer, I wasn't deterred. After all, I figured this was just the first batch of DLC characters. Maybe the development team just didn't have enough time or didn't have enough money to make a proper engaging story with new enemies and villains for these characters to interact with. And at the end of the day, I mean, I got the characters, so what more could I complain about? And with that, I turned to the next DLC page, which gave us 4 brand new X-Men, which I was pretty excited about. I really like the X-Men. And as I looked at this new DLC page, my brain went, alright, now we're talking. These guys were popular heroes. I mean, we got Gambit, Cable, the probably straight version of Iceman, and that Phoenix Force. And the Phoenix Force DLC character from all the previous Ultimate Alliance games. It's weird that we never just get Jean Grey just as a character. She's always been like a DLC character. I might be wrong for Ultimate Alliance 1, but she's a DLC for 3 and she's a DLC for 2. So we just never get a proper Jean Grey in an Ultimate Alliance game. But I thought to myself, surely the X-Men will be given a story. I mean, they have some of the most iconic villains and just normal base enemies in Marvel Comics. Surely we'd get some sort of a main storyline with them, running around fighting new characters, getting new cutscenes. Maybe they'd even acknowledge the previous DLC. Maybe they were off helping the X-Men. But as I looked into the void of video game development, it stared back at me and whispered, multiplayer modes. It was the exact same fucking thing. Never mind the fact that I was extremely confused by all the weird multiplayer game modes this DLC added, which by the way had nothing to do with unlocking the characters. I was once again forced to go through more Rift challenges, fighting the X-Men as bosses, most of whom were incredibly difficult to finish. In fact, as of time of writing, I don't actually have all the X-Men DLC characters, because the last challenge is just so goddamn impossible that I need to know everything about invincibility frames and combat modes and have characters leveled up to 300, which again, 1,800 times I have to level up 40-something characters? I can't be fucking bothered. The AI in Ultimate Alliance 3 can also best be described as worse than Paper Mario AI. Like, Jesus Christ, I've seen Sims with better combat capabilities than these characters. Alas, I don't have all the Marvel characters I paid actual human money for. Marvel truly is the Dark Souls of development studios. Stealing your money, giving you nothing in return, which, to be fair, I guess we should have expected at this point in our modern era of video game development. Full of loot boxes and microtransactions tacked on to a $70 game. But by the end of that DLC, I had reached the end of my rope. I was exasperated. I was defeated. I flipped to the final DLC screen, expecting nothing more than clad iron kicks right to my fragile testicles. However, out of the darkness of spending $20 and not really getting my monetary return, there it was, a brilliant light shining right back at me. And there they were, Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four. And to top it all off, they actually had an entire new story added as an epilogue to Ultimate Alliance 3. Dear viewer, I could barely contain my excitement as I pressed the A button, or the X button, whatever the hell Nintendo uses as the go button. But my eyes didn't deceive me. There they were. Brand new cutscenes. A whole new story. The cutscene did the unthinkable. It acknowledged all the DLC characters I had spent money for. There was Blade and the Punisher and Moon Knight fighting ninjas on a rooftop. The X-Men had a full roster now, and they were running around being X-Men. It was so beautiful, I almost cried. That's how fragile I was. All I wanted was just more story. All I wanted was more Ultimate Alliance 3. And finally, I had been given it. This story began where Ultimate Alliance 3 ended, with all the Infinity Stones being scattered across the cosmos, and the Soul Stone being right back in Wakanda by King T'Challa, who decided to store his gem in the exact same spot it was taken from before, because fool me once, I guess, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on Wakanda. But to no one's surprise, Wakanda was immediately attacked. Seriously, Wakanda is one of the most war-torn nations in Africa. And isn't it supposed to be like the greatest utopia the Earth has ever seen? Why is it constantly being attacked and wiped out in Marvel Comics? Seriously, the sheer number of times that we have just been fighting wars in Wakanda, in Marvel games alone, is exasperating. I mean, I suppose you kinda have to have Wakanda, and you wanna have fighting in Wakanda. But I mean, shouldn't Wakanda be the safest place on Earth? See, it makes more sense if, like, the Avengers Mansion or the Avengers Tower is getting destroyed. Sure, they're the greatest army of superheroes the world has ever seen, but I mean, they're in the middle of New York. Of course New York's gonna get attacked. But Wakanda should actually be much safer. It should be the safest place on Earth, but it gets wiped out all the time by literally just an Australian with a sonic cannon. I mean, come on. And honestly, I was a little bit disappointed at first when I realized we were just gonna fight in Wakanda again. But I held my breath and watched the cutscene continue. And I was surprised to see that it wasn't just a reused enemy asset. It wasn't just bringing us back to Wakanda because they had already designed it and just happened to have the assets standing by for a story. No, there was something new to these enemies. These enemies all bore the same metallic face. The face of doom. Once the game gave me back control, I led all of the Alliance members right into T'Challa's throne room, where after a little bit of a scuffle, we actually got to talk with some of the DLC characters, with even old Cyclops acknowledging his newest arrivals. It was pretty fucking great. I was actually excited to see that the DLC was being acknowledged as a DLC. And after this, we went past the throne room, right into the soul chamber thing, and we found Big Metal Daddy Doomcock breaking right through thousands of years of Wakandan magic in like 2 seconds, and he took the Soul Stone as his prize. While I was extremely excited to see Doom again, I had a little bit of worry creeping in that the story was just going to be about Dr. Doom taking the Infinity Stones for himself, meaning we would basically just be fighting Thanos again, but he'd be a guy from a European country who really, really, really likes to wear metal and green for some reason. But I pressed onward. After turning the difficulty down, because I honestly just couldn't be bothered dying to Doom again, and again, and again, we were able to slap Doom so hard that he decided to send all 46 heroes right into the negative zone. Honestly, the negative zone looked exactly the same as all the other weird, otherworldly zones we had been sent to in Ultimate Alliance 3. But in that negative zone, they appeared. I watched as a cutscene played about the Alliance being overrun by a swarm of Annihilus bugs, until suddenly an invisible bubble appeared around our heroes and flames sprouted around, and a giant stretched out hand swatted away the overgrown cockroaches, and then with a final mighty stone stomp, they appeared. The Fantastic Four. I was so excited at this point that I didn't even really mind that the negative zone looked exactly the same as all the other zones, just that it had some bug problems. But as soon as the cutscene ended, I was given the entirety of Marvel's first family. No challenges, no bullshit, no weird rift challenges. I got all the characters I paid real human money for, in the context of a brand new story, with relatively new locations and actual new enemies. And let me tell you, I was on cloud fucking 9. It had been around 10 years since I had my hands on these characters, and I was more than happy to use them for the rest of the DLC. And so I did. I used all the Fantastic Four for the rest of the DLC. I genuinely didn't even want to switch to any of the other characters, because I was just having so much fun playing as the Fantastic Four again. And inside the negative zone, we got to talk with more DLC characters again. We talked with the Punisher and Iceman, who are actually fully voiced and had their own unique perspectives on the negative zone and the reunited Fantastic Four. We even got to see Deadpool and Cable reunited at last. which was truly the highlight of Ultimate Alliance 3. Deadpool acknowledged that he was in a DLC, though he called it Deadpool Loves Cable, which I was totally about. And he was even able to acknowledge how strange it was that we only got to see all 46 heroes in cutscenes, but anytime we were playing the game, we were limited to squads of 4. I was just grateful to see Deadpool and Cable and the Punisher and the Fantastic Four, all the DLC, just being acknowledged and given full context. And I love Nolan North as Deadpool. It's weird that he also plays like Rocket and like a whole bunch of other characters, but I was okay with it. I hadn't even really started playing as the Fantastic Four, but I began to feel bad about being so harsh to the team who gave me an entire brand new game to bitch and moan about and complain that it wasn't good enough, despite the fact that clearly they worked hard and clearly they cared about the product that they were making. They simply were just limited in the console that they were launching on, in the fact that they basically had to make a new Ultimate Alliance game from scratch, the fact that they had to live up to the hype of the previous games while bringing in new fans and while dealing with the fact that the MCU had started within the range of literally the last game. I honestly think Ultimate Alliance 2 came out like right around the time the MCU started, and they had to kind of acknowledge the fact that the MCU had become so popular that it dwarfed all other media. And yet, while I did regret my feelings of the previous 2 DLC, I moved onwards to just enjoy the fact I had new content. The fact that I had more Ultimate Alliance 3. And honestly, the Fantastic Four are great. I feel like they had great chemistry, they all sounded right, their storyline was pretty good, and they had decent powers, though I feel like the Thing is honestly the worst of the Fantastic Four, while Invisible Woman is the best of the Fantastic Four, for obvious reasons. And we even got brand new enemies in the form of the bugs of the Negative Zone. And I felt that they were mildly difficult to get through, though it was quite satisfying to kill them all with the Fantastic Four. And much to my surprise, the Negative Zone was actually building towards a brand new boss battle with a brand new villain, Annihilus, a character I admittedly only knew of because I had read the Annihilation Wave storyline once at college. But nonetheless, I was happy. After squashing Annihilus in a cutscene, the Alliance and the Fantastic Four escaped the Negative Zone right into easily the best surprise I could have gotten. Latveria? It's Latveria, there we go. As a playable level with the Fantastic Four again. Once again, I was leading the Ultimate Alliance right into Doom's castle, all the while listening to the Fantastic Four talk about their thoughts and feelings on Doom, while they mercilessly wiped out his entire country with fire and Thingstone. And aside from the really fucking stupid, annoying laser puzzle grid section things, I honestly thought the level was amazing. I thought Latveria was actually really well done. I quite liked it. I quite liked the aesthetic of just running through a medieval era styled village and seeing, artwork of Doom, which obviously was just concept art reused to make it seem like the citizens of Latveria were incredibly talented. But it was quite nice, just running around, seeing Doom statues, fighting Doom bots, and as we got closer to the castle, Doom's plan began to take shape. Right in the psychotic leader's moat, Doom had the corpse of a Celestial. Those big fuckers from the externals? The ones that they killed off with barely any effort and just went, oh my god, we killed a Celestial, whatever will we do? And it's like, dude, he was gonna kill the Earth, come on. I was excited because this reveal showed that Doom wasn't actually after the Infinity Stones. Instead, he was going for something much grander. The Soul Stone he took from Wakanda was just a means to an end for him to wake up the dead Celestial in the form of a boss fight that I honestly thought was a bit underwhelming, since the giant body was just too big to have a decent fight against. So for the most part, it was miles and miles away while I got to throw missiles at him and other crap. Just kept throwing shit at the Celestial until eventually he died. It was a bit underwhelming, but oh well, it was a brand new boss fight of sorts. Most of the fighting against the Celestial took part in god-awful dodging sections, where as he got stronger, the Celestial was able to throw more shit at you, which by the third part made it impossible to get through until I turned the difficulty down. It was bad because as he threw stuff at you, you would get stunned, and then you would get hit by something, and it would throw you back. But I kept getting stun locked, where basically I would get hit, I would get stunned, and then while I was stunned, I would get hit again, which would stun me, so that way I could get hit again, which would stun me, so that way I could get hit again, and it just kept going and going and going until all the Fantastic Four just died. And then I just went, well, what's the fucking point? So I turned the difficulty down, and I was able to get through the section just fine. But after the big, bulky guy, who was used as a early boss fight in LEGO Marvel 2, I finally made it to the big Doomcock throne room, which at this point I must add that it must just be absolute hell for a normal peasant to try and walk to Doom's throne room, and it probably takes days, even without trying to jump through all the laser grids and fending off immortal beings of pure devastation. I honestly don't know how he rules anything. I mean, if anyone has any sort of tiny complaint that they want to bring up to Doom, they have to walk all the way through that goddamn castle, which took me like hours to get through. And I could fly. And just past his throne, up one final flight of stairs, there he was, Doom. The man I had defeated decades earlier in Ultimate Alliance 1, the actual reason for the existence of this franchise, the man who hasn't had a decent on-screen portrayal since Captain America was the Human Torch. I was excited. I was ecstatic. Finally, all of Ultimate Alliance had been building to this moment. I was more excited to fight Doom than I was to fight Thanos. And to be fair, Doom's fight was actually pretty challenging, even on the easiest difficulty, which I obviously had to switch over to because I wanted to finish the story, and I didn't want to get trapped in a never-ending cycle of rage quitting and feeling bad that I'm not good at video games. I really liked that Doom essentially turned into the God Emperor Doom from Secret Wars. Doom was a decent challenge, but eventually I did defeat him. Once Doom fell, everyone gathered once again, the entire Alliance, just to decide Doom's fate. And right before Iron Man could take the Tin Man away, Reed Richards revealed the reason behind Doom's sudden grab for unlimited power. The whole reason for this DLC. In the battle for the Infinity Stones, which led to the defeat of Thanos, the conflict had awakened every single celestial being of pure cosmic power in the Marvel Universe, which, if you took an hour or two to look at the Marvel Fanipedia page, is surprisingly a lot. The Fantastic Four DLC not only was an homage to the first Ultimate Alliance game, not only a fantastic, though sadly short duel between Doom and his familial enemies, but a true epilogue to Ultimate Alliance 3, and a surprising, huge teaser for Ultimate Alliance 4, a game that admittedly will probably never happen, at least not for another 10 years, on another console that no one can afford, because of course the global shortages will last for another 10 years. But I digress. Even though, ultimately, we only got 2 relatively brand new levels, even though we only got 3-ish new bosses, one of which I could honestly take or leave, and even though the 2 other DLCs were just unbearably terrible, I was satisfied with the end of the Ultimate Alliance 3 DLC. Maybe I just needed something good to happen in my life for once. Maybe I ended up getting swept up in the bright lights, an invisible woman's stunning figure. Maybe this DLC wasn't really worth $20 just so I could go to Latveria, but to me, it was the best way to end Ultimate Alliance 3. And as a surprisingly awesome cherry on top, without even asking if it was my birthday, Ultimate Alliance 3 gave me the best surprise of 2022. Ultimate Alliance 3 gave me Dr. Doom himself to play as in Ultimate Alliance 3. At the end of the day, Ultimate Alliance has been, and always should be, a Marvel sandbox. A franchise where you could make any team up you wanted, with any characters you wanted, fighting any foe in any iconic Marvel location, and honestly, just have fun. Just being in the Marvel Universe. Overall, Ultimate Alliance 3 wasn't a great game. It wasn't as good as Ultimate Alliance 1. But to me, it was a story I desperately needed to play. Not a heroic breakdown of our iconic soups, just like Marvel's Avengers, but a classic tale of heroes fighting for what they believed in. Ultimate Alliance 3's DLC is a bit overpriced. $20 for 2 new levels and a few extra characters is kind of just absurd. But I will stand by my pitch that the Fantastic Four saved Ultimate Alliance 3. Because it saved the DLC, and it even got me excited for a 4th installment of this franchise. All while giving me a short but sweet story about the Fantastic Four. I do hope that the next Ultimate Alliance game will be a cross-platform game, though it's doubtful if Nintendo will even want to waste money fighting for the rights to Marvel. Time and a lot of patience will only tell, I suppose. Maybe we won't ever get an Ultimate Alliance 1 again. Maybe we won't even get an Ultimate Alliance 2 again. Maybe we won't get an Ultimate Alliance game, period. I for one live with a fool's hope. If the Fantastic Four saved Ultimate Alliance 3, maybe they can save the MCU too. At the end of the day, I think I will play Ultimate Alliance 3 again, most likely on a lower difficulty, but it's entirely possible that I'll do it again. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to give a like down below or leave a comment on what you would like me to review next. Please, give me your opinions on Ultimate Alliance 3 and the DLC. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you even play it? Are you excited for Ultimate Alliance 4? And how do you feel about the Fantastic Four? Please, let me know down below. And I will thank you so very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next one.